Hey guys, welcome back to another tutorial. Today I'm just going to show you how I quickly threw together this half-gallon canteen. This was a custom request from one of my customers. I've never done a half-gallon before. It was quite the challenge, but I'm going to show you a couple of tips and tricks to get you in and out and get this project finished with minimal coats of epoxy. Obviously, a half-gallon carrying it around full of liquid is going to be extremely heavy as it is, let alone adding coats of epoxy to it. So we're going to work on this and try to limit the number of epoxy coats. So I'm going to start out by spray painting the base with a light pink, and then we're going to use the Tack-It method to apply my glitter versus using just the regular epoxy method like I normally do. Tack-It method is kind of like a glue. It's Aleene's Tack-It, and it goes on kind of like a Mod Podge and just dries, but when you rub it, it gives it this kind of holographic effect depending on what glitter you're using. This one doesn't have any holographic in it, but the reason I chose this is because the glitter lays down flatter than it normally does with the epoxy method. So that is going to contribute to lessening the coats of epoxy like I mentioned in the beginning. So we're going to go over it one time. Once that glue is applied, it'll go on white, and then once it's clear, you know that it's dry to put the glitter onto. It's not going to be dry to the touch. It's always going to be sticky even after it's dry. That's just the type of glue it is. But once it's clear, that means that you're good to go with the glitter. We're going to place that on the cup and then burnish it down with a gloved hand. You most likely will have to do a second coat. Typically, I have to do 2 coats with this method. It doesn't usually give me full coverage the first time. So we're going to go back over, same process. We're just applying the glue, making sure there's no clumps in here. With this method specifically, it's really easy to see the streaks of glue under there if you have any like glue clumps, and it never fully dries, so it kind of smears it around. So just make sure that all of your glue is spread out. It's, you know, nice and coated, but you don't have any streaks in there or any clumps of glue before you're applying that glitter. So burnishing it down here with a gloved hand, making sure to get around the top and bottom rims as well. And then we'll move into our next coats of epoxy. You'll want to make sure that you are taping off the top rim of your tumbler. If you have something with a screw-on lid that is on the outside of the tumbler, if that makes sense, versus like a screw-in like ring on the inside of the tumbler, because you don't want that epoxy to kind of come over the top of that glitter edge and get into where that outer ring is. That's going to prevent the lid from getting a good seal, and then you're going to have a leaky tumbler. So taping that off with either a painter's tape or electrical tape, whatever you want to do. And we're going to go in with a coat of Flynn Sisters fast setting epoxy. I chose this because it's a very thick viscosity, meaning that it's really thick to the touch, but it also gives a good coat. Like it's essentially like a solid 2 coats of regular setting epoxy for this 1 coat of fast set. So I chose that as my base layer. We're going to put that on and make sure to torch any air bubbles. Because it's such a thick viscosity, it does tend to have more micro bubbles, but once it's applied to the cup and you torch it, they come right out. So don't be alarmed if you see extra micro bubbles in your cup when you're mixing it up. That's completely normal. It does torch out as long as you're not like whipping your epoxy or anything like that. So So we'll get that applied, and don't forget to pull the tape on the top rim. Pull that immediately after it's been torched. You don't want that to stick to the epoxy layer you just cured. And then we'll let that dry and move into our next steps. This is an old semi-transparent floral sheet that I got from BAMF Custom Creations. They are, I don't know if this is permanent or temporary, but they are out of business. Their shop is closed. So I'm just trying to get through all of my old vinyl inventory. I have so much. I have lifetimes worth of vinyl. It's crazy. I have no business having this much vinyl. So if you see lots of vinyl in my tutorials, that's why. But we're just going to take this 12 by 12 sheet and we're going to cut out kind of clumps of florals. I'm using the edge pieces of the vinyl sheet for the edges of the tumbler. And then we'll use the kind of middle of the vinyl sheet for the rest of the body of the tumbler. We'll just place that where it fits. So I just wanted I wanted to use the stuff around the edges of the vinyl because there's so much of it, but it lines up kind of perfectly with the top rim of the tumbler and it doesn't look out of place being, kind of cut off on the top rim. So, that was kind of my thought process on that. So we're just going to cut these up into pieces. I'll let this play through. I did speed it up quite a bit. You guys don't really need a tutorial on how to place the vinyl, but just making sure that when you're laying it down, if you're going around a curve or anything like that, that you're not leaving any of the clear or the transparent parts of the vinyl sticking up or poking up, because then you're going to have to put more coats of epoxy on it to cover the lumps and bumps. So we'll just place these down, making sure they're flat along the rim, and then once we've got the rim taken care of, we'll fill in the body of the tumbler and finish this cup up. I did put a coat of polycrylic over the vinyl. Typically this stuff doesn't lift, but because I chopped it up into so many bits and pieces, and because we're trying to lessen the coats of epoxy, as I've said 100 times, I just wanted to make sure that nothing was going to lift under that epoxy. So I did just put a preventative coat of polycrylic on there, let that air dry, and then I went over it with a coat of epoxy. Now this right here is the second coat of epoxy. We are going to apply this, and then we'll mix up those glitters in the epoxy that we have left over as well, instead of applying them dryly to the cup, if that makes sense, because I'm trying again to incorporate that into the epoxy so we don't have to do another coat over top of it to cover up the accent glitter that we're adding here. So just a little bit of epoxy is all it needs. I'm just gonna mix the glitter into it and then just kind of finger paint it on the tumbler in the empty spaces. So I tried to put it in the negative space, if you will, basically where the pink glitter was showing through and where there was no florals. I just tried to spread it in there to give it some depth and dimension. And once we've got that applied to our liking, we're going to torch over that. And I will tell you guys, I was absolutely shocked because there was not one single piece of glitter that was poking up after this and not one single vinyl. So I was good to go right into the decal. This was a custom request, like I said. I would have left it like this if it were up to me, but the customer had requested a very specific decal, so I did go over it with a third coat of epoxy and some decals. You'll see that in the end. But like I said, if it were up to me, this would be the end result. I love how this cup turned out. The pinks and the florals, they just popped so well together. But that is it for this tutorial. Could have gotten away with 2 coats of epoxy if there was no extra decal on that, but this is what she wanted, so we did a third and got out of there with 3 coats of epoxy total. So if you guys like this tutorial, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that bell button for notifications on future tutorials. Let me know what you thought in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next videos.